Oh, hello, by the way. And welcome to Dark Alignment Podcast. I am Brittney.
And I'm Eruca Rose.
And we are a true crime plus astrology podcast. For those of you who know us pretty well and watch us on the YouTube version with the visual content, you will notice we are in a new space. We've talked a lot about it on our Instagram stories and given you some behind the scenes fun footage and a little bit of a tour. Do you want to talk about it at all?
Yeah, this is my grandma's house. She did recently pass away. So I don't know, maybe if y'all see any orbs or something.
Yeah, let us know.
But we did cast like a protection little border because we feel like Richard Ramirez's spirit is going to be kind of
That's who we're covering today. Surprise, we are covering Richard Ramirez.
Sorry, I dropped the ball.
You dropped it. You dropped it on us.
I dropped the ball, but they couldn't read the title. So
that's very true. They could read
it.
These are facts. It's not a surprise. If you found this episode, you probably already knew.
Anyway, we've had a lot happening. I had death in the family. I had a whole root canal issue. I changed my hair. I've been very busy with a lot of things. She's been very busy with a lot of things. That's why we haven't dropped any episodes in a minute.
Yeah.
But she's going to graduate.
I'll be done with school in just a couple weeks, which is really, really exciting. We'll be able to devote a lot more time to the podcast and get on a more regular schedule. We now have a space with no dogs, which is really nice. You won't hear Evelyn this time. And let's see, last time we were here, we covered Biggie and Tupac. So it has been a little bit. Thank you guys for sticking with us. We've got more things to come. So make sure you check us out on social media. Like, follow, subscribe. We are at Dark Alignment on Instagram. We are on all the platforms. We
have a Twitter now.
Oh, yeah, I forgot we have Twitter now.
Because Chris Brittney and I are Astrology Twins. We are Sun, Moon, Rising Twins. I was going to say Astro Twins, but I was like, I need to be more specific. And so he has all his stuff on Twitter, and it's like, I'll give us a Twitter.
It's been really
we have a Twitter. It's Alignment Dark.
Alignment Dark.
Because
somebody took our name, I guess.
There was less stuff available.
Lame.
But you'll find us. You'll find us if you find me or her. I have it linked in my bio.
Yep, same. We're linked all over the place, so be sure to check us out. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell, all the things. We also have Patreon. Patreon gets content that nobody else does, so when you guys haven't been getting general episodes, Patreon has still been getting some hot content and lots of fun stuff. So we try to do a little bit extra there, especially with when we have a little bit of time, like we're a little bit pressed.
We always add extra videos on there.
Yeah.
And those will be coming in more and more consistently since we'll have more time on our hands.
Yep. And we're getting there. So I guess without further ado, we can go ahead and start talking about Richard Ramirez.
Let's get into it because there's a lot of story.
Yeah, there's a lot of story.
Probably just gonna show and
kick back. Just hang out. So. My sources for this episode, I love Wikipedia. I always use Wikipedia. Please donate. I made sure to do my annual donation. So I'm not going to tell you guys to donate without doing it myself. I definitely use this site often. And then I found some stuff also on Yahoo, which is kind of random. YouTube had a few different documentaries, and then Netflix has an entire docuseries right now on the entire investigation. There's the Cecil Hotel stuff. There's so much. Yes. I love it. Yes, please share.
So I had another thought. If you really want to get intense about citing your sources, you could go, to the footnotes at the bottom of the Wikipedia page.
Could.
And list off all of those as well.
I really could. Well, technically...
But that would be a lot.
So technically, when you're citing a source, you don't have to cite the sub-sources. So I would just be citing Wikipedia. Yeah, well, I cite everything in APA. So, citing Wikipedia actually cites all the background from there, too. Yeah.
I'm actually easier.
But if I wanted to really be good, I could cite all throughout the paper and reference who I'm talking about and when and where the source came from.
What do you want from us?
Per the Washington Post. Or, I could really do that. It would be lame. I'm not trying to be a serious journalist here, so if that's what you're looking for...
If you guys want very serious monotone true crime
I would love
podcast.
to recommend Forensic Files and Dateline.
Because that's not us.
That's not us. So. We are here to tell you a story that's kind of fucked up. We're here to give you some awesome astrology insight, and we're here to just have a conversation and have a good time. So please join us if that sounds good to you. If not, then this is not, we're not, it's not going to work. So you can just go ahead and go away. No, just kidding.
Go ahead and go away.
Go ahead and go away if you want. Or stay and have a good time with us. So,
okay.
Overview, kind of what you may already know, you may not know about Richard Ramirez. He's been like kind of on the scene here lately, just with lots of different shows that are coming out right now.
There was a Netflix thing.
So he was known as the Night Stalker. He was a serial killer, a rapist. He was a fucking thief too.
Oh my God.
He sucked in all the ways. He committed a series of home invasions in the LA and San Francisco areas in 1984, 1985. He was total garbage. And actually, my favorite Richard Ramirez reference in pop culture comes from the movie Joe Dirt. Do you remember this reference?
No, but I know the movie.
Okay, you may remember it's the police sketch of his mom whenever he like uses his money from working. He's trying to find his parents, and he hires a sketch artist to do like a age progression or whatever. And he's like, my dad came out looking like Father Time, and my mom came out looking way too much like the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. And it really is funny. Like that picture that they draw of the mom really does look a lot like him. It was kind of hilarious.
That's so funny.
That's my favorite. Just fun pop culture reference there. And then he also, this is just a fun fact, has almost the same birthday as Eileen Wuornos. I thought they had the same birthday. I thought they were both born on a leap year. But I guess he was born the day before.
He was the 28th. I don't know about if the year was... It was 1960.
I don't know.
But
yeah. Anyway, trigger warning. This guy is piece of fucking garbage. He's really, really terrible, but we're going to talk about him.
Here we go.
When he was a kid, he was actually the youngest of 5 children. That sounds awful. I'm an only child. I would absolutely hate to have a bunch of siblings. So his family was like first generation immigrants to America from Mexico. So his dad was a Mexican nationalist, served on the police force in Mexico actually. So that kind of may tell you a little bit about the personality type of anybody who's going to be in like military, police. Like it is a little bit more of that authoritarian.
You've got to have certain...
attributes. Yeah. Like I always wanted to be a police officer, but anybody who knows me knows I'm not tough enough. Like I don't have the personality for it. Like I really am interested, but I don't have personality for it. So he was a pretty tough guy. He's also known for being pretty abusive. In fact, so much so that like Richard, when he was little, would sleep in a nearby cemetery to avoid his dad. So that's not great. Doesn't sound I mean, I like cemeteries, but children probably don't need to be there.
Just looking at his chart, it's like I feel like that would not be good for him.
Oh,
I'm starting to have some... Okay, go ahead.
Some vibes. I love when you watch the chart while I'm telling the story. Like I like to watch.
It helps because it's almost like you're just telling the story of
what you're
the
seeing.
chart.
Yeah.
Like not that I need you to, but it's like it helps me remember what you said.
Yeah.
As I go through the chart, I'm like, oh right.
It gives you context to what you're like just looking at.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, and I'm like, well, that situation with this chart, and I can think about it because I'm not going to remember it. Whenever it's my turn to talk. Well, I can take a note.
Feel free to chime in. Yeah. I love the live notes too. So yeah, his dad didn't have a great relationship there. His biggest influence as a child was actually his older cousin, and this was not a positive influence. So his cousin was a Green Beret during the Vietnam War, and he was a piece of shit. He actually would come back and he told Richard all these stories about the disgusting and fucked up things he did. He actually had Polaroids of Vietnamese women he had raped and murdered. Super, super fucked up. Some of the photos, trigger warning, his garbage cousin posed with the severed head of a woman that he had abused and killed.
Wow.
And Richard's a child. He's preteen. He's young. And then his cousin ended up murdering his own wife. He shot her in the face. And Richard was there when it happened. He, right in front of him. They got into an argument, and he just shot her in the face right in front of his little cousin. He was 13 years old at this time, so very, very impressionable. All the stories of him before this age, like young childhood, say that he was a pretty normal kid. Like,
I was about to say, is this when it hit? Because I'm kind of looking at the chart. Like,
right, yeah. So it's basically...
Like 11, 12, 13?
Yeah. It's around this time that he's exposed to, like... You know, he'd already been predisposed to, like, the violence at home, but, like, having this really, really violent imagery at a time that your sexual development is really taking off, like...
Your puberty, your hormones are changing, and, like, a lot is going on.
Yeah. There's so many changes going on, and things can manifest. That's actually, you know, with paraphilias, that's about the time that they start to manifest.
Really?
Because, yes, when people discover sexuality, it's sometimes connected. That's where, you know...
It's connected to their childhood?
Well, yeah, it's like whatever kind of strikes their fancy at that time. It could be, so for example, I've studied paraphilias pretty in depth, and they're really fascinating. So like a shoe fetish is not about the foot. It's not about the female wearing it. It's about the shoe itself is the object of sexual attraction. Wow. And it's more of like it's a symbol. So when you think about sexuality and sexual development in a child, like it's already like a sensitive time, and it's confusing, and you put in some of this type of very, very, very graphic, violent imagery in there for somebody who's impressionable and who's exposed to somebody who's kind of glorifying that, who they look up to. It just did a lot of damage, and you can really, really see it take off here. Horrible role model. And of course, his cousin went to prison, obviously, for, you know, committing murder. And Richard was apparently really depressed after that. But, you know, don't worry. His shitty brother-in-law was there to step in and take him under his wing. Also not great. So this dude was really bad news. He was like into voyeurism, so basically peeping Tom.
Okay.
So that... He's, like, really obsessed with it, and then, you know, that's something that Richard sees. Also, he's getting, like, all this great social learning happening around him, which is just tragic. And then he also becomes introduced to Satanism, which has such a stigma. This was one of the things, like, when I watched all these documentaries, they harped and harped and harped on the Satanism, and it was just kind of like... You know, the whole, like, satanic panic and all that shit. Like, I have a really good friend who's a Satanist. She's a wonderful person. Like, it's like, it's not what it's portrayed as. I'm pretty sure it's not.
I haven't gotten into it, but...
Yeah, so I've just learned about it from a friend who is a proclaimed Satanist. She is amazing. I absolutely fucking adore her. One of my favorite people. And it's just, like, I just don't like the stigma associated. So I'm not going to talk too much about that. I do feel like it's unrelated. Lots of people are Satanists that don't commit any sort of violent crimes at all.
When people are trying to vilify someone, they'll just throw that word around.
Yep.
So whenever it comes up when stuff with, like, famous people, I'm like, yeah, they probably weren't.
Like, one of the documentaries was like he drew pentagrams on his hand, and I was like, oh no, so does, like, every fucking junior high kid.
Also, yeah, true. Also, like, the direction of the pentagram matters, and people don't usually pay attention to that.
I don't even
like
know.
It's, yeah, like upright, it's a lot different than upside down.
I'm learning today. We're learning.
So we're learning look into that, guys, if you want to know.
So I don't feel like that was the issue, but what was kind of an issue is around this time he started using LSD. So he was already, like, smoking weed and drinking, like, doing some of the normal teenage experimental drug stuff. LSD is a little bit intense for a teenager. It's not really an experimental drug for teens.
It's a lot.
He's a little bit young to be doing super hard drugs, I feel. That's just an opinion. And one of his childhood friends said that acid was kind of like the beginning of his downfall. And then he also developed a cocaine habit. And then by the 9th grade, he had completely dropped out of school. So that's the whole social structure that was kind of still there for him. Once that falls away, it's, you know, it continues to get worse. So... here's his he's a rising star in the criminal world. Here we go. So now that he has had a lot of exposure to, like, being a terrible person, like, how he's had that clearly modeled for him in a very violent, disturbing way. he starts tapping into his own kind of disturbing fantasies and puts them into action. So buckle the fuck up, you guys. It's about to get bad. It gets bad quick in this episode. So he was into very forced, not consensual bondage and rape. So he found ways to access women. He got an after-school job at a Holiday Inn when he was, like, still in school. So this is exactly why I'm suspicious of anybody who wants to work at a hotel. I'm just like, why do you want to work here? Are you... I don't know.
A lot of nice people.
I can't trust you. No, I'm sorry. I can't. Okay. I have a paranoia about it. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they're wanting to work against these people, which keep fighting the good fight if that's you.
Okay.
Keep us safe. So he would use his key to rob the guests, and then it started to escalate to sexuality stuff and violent. Yeah, so supposedly he was caught trying to molest 2 young children in an elevator at this job, so he's a total monster. And that got him fired. So one guest actually, like, walked in on him at one point, like, trying to rape his wife. He was just out of control.
Whoa.
And then another dude, like, beat the shit out of him for attacking his wife. So that he wasn't, like, getting caught didn't seem to, like, stop him either. He just he was just kind of very feral about his crimes, and the way he went about it is super, super gross. But yeah, charges were never pressed because, like, these couples were in a hotel. They're from out of state. It would have been a big ordeal to go back to court. They would have had to come back to this other state. Like, so it just never stuck. He lost his job, but he's still, like, a predator out there, clearly repeating a cycle and escalating each time. And the thing that's so interesting, and they talk about this a lot on the documentaries, and it's just from studying criminology, like, this is a thing that's just so fascinating to me, is his victimology was not any certain type. When you look at most serial killers, you have an Albert Fish who is seeking children. You have a Ted Bundy who is seeking dark-haired women between this age and this age that have this very specific look to them. Yeah. But when you have somebody like Richard Ramirez, he would attack children. He would attack adults. He would attack...
that would make it a lot harder to track him down.
Well, and not only that, they didn't even know that it was the same person committing all these crimes because that is so unusual. Because they didn't even link the crimes.
Exactly.
So it just ended up being, because it's almost unheard of for somebody to, when you have a CSO or a child sex offender, they are typically, they might attack both genders. They may like victimize males and females because they're just attracted to children in general, which is super fuck it up and terrible. But typically, like, adults, like, who rape adults, they don't typically also rape children and adults and older people. Like, they don't tend to go all over the board like that, especially, like, serial criminals. So that was really interesting about him, and you can already see that pattern here where he's attacking children in an elevator, he's attacking women, he's just all over the place. So... here we go. Being very poor and very unpopular. Here we go. When he was 22, he moves to California. And then at the age of 24, he commits his first murder. And his victim was a 9-year-old girl. It's so awful. This is really fucked up. He raped and beat this sweet little girl for stabbing her to death. And it gets worse. He I don't like it. I don't even want to say it. He hung her body from a pipe. So this was his first known killing. He, like, displayed the body. He, like, really was very brutal. Very, very disgusting, especially when you think about, like, this is a child victim. This is super horrible. And nobody was able to connect him to this crime until 2009 when the unsolved case had a DNA hit. And it matched him. So this was one that, like, they hadn't been connected before. Yeah. So here we go. More fucked up stuff. Here we go into his night crawler activities. Night crawling. All right. So the summer of 1984, he went on a, like, huge crime spree in LA. It's awful. Here we go. again, you're going to see how his victims are all over the place age-wise, because he brutally murdered a 79-year-old woman.
Another 9.
Yeah, another 9. That's it. That's an interesting thing.
Anyway, go ahead.
He murdered her in her apartment. He stabbed her repeatedly while she was asleep in her bed, and he slashed her throat so deeply she was nearly decapitated. So he, like, OJ style. Like, he entered the apartment through an open window, and this was, like, a thing that he was really doing with the night stalking, because this is California back then. Like, it was hot in the summer and at nights, and people did sleep with the windows open. So it was pretty easy for him to access, like, all these different places at that time, until word got out that they knew that they had a serial predator. Like, people were just, it was really common. So he does it again in the spring of 1985. He has another victim. And then he has a bit of a cooling off period, which is a differentiator for someone to be classified as a serial killer versus a spree killer.
Okay. That's
so
good to know.
A spree killer is somebody, let's say you have a 4-day period, and they just go out and just are, randomly committing a lot of crimes through that one period. And, like, if they are done then or caught then, like, that would be a spree. But, like, a serial killer is going to have that cooling off period. Sometimes it's a couple of months. Sometimes it can be longer, where they are not doing anything and then they start up again. So, yeah, he definitely does that. The next time when he picks back up, he attacks a 22-year-old female. So, again, you have a 9-year-old, you have a 79-year-old, you have a 22-year-old. He's all over the place. He attacks her outside of her home. He chose a different weapon this time, which is also really interesting. He didn't tend to kill his victims like really up close and personal the way most serial offenders do, where they want, it's usually, you'll see a manual strangulation, you'll see something where they want to have contact with the victim, and he ended up, like, shooting a lot of his victims. So his methodology, his victimology, all of these things, like, really allowed him to go undetected a lot longer. Just police had no idea who or what they were looking for.
Profile him very well, and then how could you? Wow.
Yeah, they like had no idea. So yeah, again, no type. He shoots this young woman in the face. That's another thing. And the initial shot didn't kill her. This is really crazy. The bullet actually ricocheted off the car keys she had in her hands, because she lifted them to protect her face. So he shot the key first. So that's kind of nuts. And then her roommate was inside and home at the time, and she heard the gunshot and then, like, witnessed the fatal shot. So shoots her point blank in the forehead. She does not survive. He then goes on to attack a 30-year-old woman. He shoots her twice and flees the scene. He's pretty much on a rampage. 10 days later, he's at it again. That doesn't even classify as a cooling off period. Like, 10 days isn't even long enough. But he is having, like, shorter periods between murders. So he's just out of control and awful. And this time he ends up robbing and shooting a husband and wife and, like, ransacking their home. So he's doing something else new this time. He mutilated their bodies with a kitchen knife. This part is really, really awful, but it's just kind of speaks to his, just how depraved he was. He actually gouged out the female victim's eyes and put them in a jewelry box, and then he took them with him as a souvenir. Yeah. So, and their bodies were discovered by their son, which is
terrible.
Just keeps getting worse. So this is actually based on the evidence at this crime scene. Police were finally able to connect it all, that this was the same person, that they did have a serial killer on the loose, which this is like, everybody's fucking freaking out. Like, can you imagine if we found out that we had a serial killer in our town that's, like, attacking women? And I'd be fucking scared shitless.
Home.
I'd be like, I don't ever want to be home. I want to be out in public where the people are and where there's witnesses. I live alone. Like, no, I don't want to be home. I want to be somewhere
For the record, she's not home alone that often. Okay.
Sure. Definitely not.
On the internet.
Definitely not.
Oh my god.
So
she really isn't.
Everybody's panicking. He was able to lay low for about 2 months this time. So this is more cooling off before he comes back out. And it repeats that exact same pattern now, entering homes of sleeping couples, shooting them, robbing them, ransacking the house. He usually rapes the women in most of the situations. He's just, like, doing the most. Like, he's doing the absolute most. He's just being completely brutal, horrible each time. It just keeps getting worse. Gonna quickly run through these crimes. Let's see. I'm trying not to give a lot of details just because it's a lot. Okay. He attacks 2 elderly sisters. They are in their 80s. He attacks them with a hammer, rapes them, uses a cord to electrocute them, bludgeons them to death. He uses lipstick to draw pentagrams on their bodies and the walls.
Oh, God.
One of these women survived the attack. And she remained conscious for 4 days before she was found.
What?
Yeah. She died as a result of the injuries. But that's so fucked up.
That's
and there's more. There's more, you guys. He's awful. Okay. Okay. He attacks a mother and her 11-year-old son in their home the very next day. He rapes the mom. He leaves them both alive. So he did this a lot. He left a lot of his victims alive. I actually watched an interview with a woman who said that she woke up to him carrying her out of her bedroom in the night. And that, yeah, he sexually assaulted her. And then he took her to an area where there were people, and he dropped her off and told her to go call 911. And, like, left her. So he did leave victims alive on occasion, which is really interesting. But he robs this mother and her child after that. Then again, another quick cooling off period for about a month. About a month later, he's back. And it's like each time he comes back, he's just even more violent. It's like every time he's just coming back even worse. So this round of killings, his first victim is a widowed grandmother. He beat her with a lamp. He stabbed her while she was sleeping. He does the same thing to another woman in her 60s. This one, he actually did end up killing her with his bare hands, like beating her. Like, so this one is like more personal. Some of these details I don't even want to read. It's so awful. Okay. So he ends up like hacking a sleeping couple with a machete in a nearby neighborhood. So he just follows this pattern of robbing them and raping the wife first, and then just like doing the most brutal killing possible. He does this 4 more times in a row to various victims, like this round. So it's just the diversity of his victims, again, makes law enforcement think that there's more than one killer. He was just like a complete maniac out there. And but at this point, the police are starting to catch on to him, and he knows this, so he's like trying to relocate. So he's feeling like the heat is on. There's all these news stories about his crimes, so he decides to head south in a stolen vehicle. He decides to hang out in this new city for a while, but this is kind of cool. There's a 13-year-old who heard this dude prowling around in his yard, and he told his parents.
Oh.
So they ended up getting the color, make, and model of his car and a partial license plate number. So they were really smart. They contacted the police with this information. They got bad vibes. They thought their son had chased away a thief. And they were like, you know, great. I can't imagine like how this family felt when they actually found out like who was in their yard.
Right.
You know, like, oh, we thought it was just a neighborhood prowler. You guys had a fucking monster in your yard.
Deal. Good thing you called.
Yeah,
wow.
So that's terrifying to think about. But he was still out there. You know, they hadn't caught him yet. He was doing whatever he wanted. He was terrorizing innocent people. He did every bit of this at night. He breaks into a house of a young couple while they're sleeping, does the exact same thing. Yeah, so this one he tries to drag the female victim off to rape her, and he actually tells her that he's the Night Stalker, and forced her to swear that she loved Satan while all this was going on. And then he ended up beating her and tying her up with neckties in a closet. But she was a total badass. Mm-hmm. She ended up surviving. She unties herself. She runs to the neighbor's house. She calls the police, and she saves her fiance's life. They got him to the hospital just in time. The surgeons removed the bullets from his head, which is amazing. They both survive, and they were able to give detailed descriptions of the attacker to the police. His stolen car was found. His fingerprints were lifted from the car. They were all over it. He had a really long criminal history and had been in contact with the law many, many times with all the stealing. Like, he'd always been a thief. So lots of, they released his mugshot to the media. And that's when, like, everything comes crashing down for him. So this section is called Vigilante Beatdown. This is the best part of the story. This is maybe the only good part of the story, in my opinion. So it's August of 1985. Richard Ramirez is 25 years old. He's being a total piece of shit. He decides to take a bus trip over to Arizona to visit his brother because he knows the heat's on in California. I got to get out of the state. I'm going to go see family. Just a little vacay, you know how it is. But he was completely unaware that his fucking picture had been blasted all over the world. Everybody knew he was the Night Stalker. So he's just running around thinking he's still like, nobody knows who I am. Everybody's seen your stupid, gross face. So he's just like going on like he's not a terrible person. And the cops were following his every move the entire time. They were staking out the bus stations. And at one point, an elderly Hispanic woman saw him, but she pointed him out and she started yelling El Matador. So, which means the killer in English. So he starts to see his pictures too. Like, as he's traveling, he starts to see his pictures on all these newspapers and flyers. So he's like, I gotta get out of here. He hops a bunch of fences. He tries to carjack a woman, but the citizens were like, fuck you. They chased him off. They knew it was him. And I love it so much. So it's like an angry mob situation, which is like, makes me so happy. So he tried 2 more times to steal a car at this point, and he failed because he was subdued by a group of residents. And this is my favorite part. Finally, it's like, okay, one citizen actually struck him over the head with a metal bar, and the mob of angry people relentlessly beat him until police arrived and took him into custody. And something tells me they allowed it to go on just a little too long, you know? Like, they were like why? We'll just break that up here in a second. It's like...
I imagine they wouldn't be in the biggest rush.
Like, I know it's wrong to do this, but also, like, the vigilante justice aspect of this, like, after everybody was so scared, like, it's just kind of like if I saw this in a movie, I'd be really happy about it.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
And it's the only reason I love this is because he 100% did this shit. You know, it's not like he was an innocent person. In the court of public opinion, this guy was fucked. He'd been identified by fingerprints, by eyewitnesses, but yeah, fuck this guy. Like, so now we're gonna talk about the trial. It's a spooky trial. Are you ready?
Yes.
So he kind of continues his whole like being very, very extra, very, very over the top, like the way he was.
Sorry.
Oh, no,
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Is he did something like really big happen during the trial?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to guess?
His midheaven is in Libra. And Libra is a lot about like justice system and like
oh my God,
the court system. And your midheaven is what you're known for. So I was like, is he going to be like, this whole time I've been like, why is his midheaven in Libra? I've been like, maybe this, maybe that. But now I'm like, is it the trial?
Oh yeah, okay. He's a lot at trial.
All right, cool.
So you're gonna probably really enjoy what I'm about to tell you because it's just so extra. It's so next level. Like, it's so over the top. So he just like goes really over the top with the Satanism stuff. In the initial trial, he's drawing pentagrams on his hands. He causes a scene and keeps yelling "Hail Satan" all through the trial.
Okay.
In open court. So I'm sure all the Satanists are really embarrassed out there.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are.
It's pretty embarrassing. And
it sounds like he's just trying to scare people.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, that's not something that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like all these disruptions going on. And then there's a big thing that happens. So one of the members of the jury doesn't show up for court because she was found shot dead in her apartment. Whoa. And everyone was paranoid, rightfully so.
Are they just restart, or do they have backup jurors? How does that work?
So it turns out it was her boyfriend had killed her. It wasn't anything related to the actual trial. It just
weird.
It ended up being a domestic violence situation, and then he committed suicide, like the boyfriend. Okay. So, but it was just kind of like some wild side drama, but they had to replace this juror with a super traumatized alternate. Can you imagine, like, being the person brought in, like, well, the other one was murdered, so now we're bringing you in on this murder trial. I'd be like, why, though? I'm making $40 a day to be here. Yeah. I don't want to be here at all. And yeah, also, I know that you served on a jury once.
I did.
And I want you to tell the story on Patreon today, please, because I know we've talked about it before. Okay. So I really I put that in my notes.
I had a big experience. So if y'all want to hear my big experience, you can get it on Patreon.
I'm excited. I'm subscribing to our Patreon just here.
We share a lot of really cool, like, personal stories on there.
We really do. We've shared a lot. I'm going to be sharing a Cracker Barrel story later.
Cracker Barrel?
I did. I ate there today. It's a whole thing.
All right, go ahead.
Anyway, so on September 20th, 1989, Richard Ramirez was convicted on 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. So he is hot garbage. He was sentenced to death in the gas chamber. And he gave this quote to the media after sentencing. We love quotes. The quotes are a lot.
Give me the quote.
Big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland. I fucking hate this guy so much.
I'm trying to connect.
There's more.
All right.
There's more about the trial.
All right.
So, there's some other gross things going on while he was in prison. Women wrote romantic letters to him, like, pretty much nonstop. And they, like, would go visit him, and it's really gross and, like, stop it. I don't understand this at all. He got engaged twice while he was on death row. And I watched some interviews of him. Oh, and it's gross. He comes off, like, really gentle and, like, soft-spoken and, like, kind of articulate, which is not what I expected. When you see, like, how disorganized his crimes were and, like, how fucking chaotic, like, I didn't expect... And also his behavior in court and stuff. Like, I didn't expect him to come off that way. So I was like, I don't like that at all. He just kind of talks out and he says he just really didn't care for people. It, like, really, it was gross. And then when the interviewer asked him why he killed all those people, he smiled really big and said no comment, which just made me want to, like, jump through the TV. He also said that he believes in the evil of human nature and that in a wicked world, wicked people are born. That's a direct quote. He added that he didn't care about himself or what happened to him. And I'm like, neither do we, shitface. So, very last little part here. See, he never died in the gas chambers like we all wanted him to. And instead he died of complications due to secondary B-cell lymphoma. And I have his death information. If you...
I plugged it in.
Okay, I've got all of that. I figured you did, but I got it. Let's see. He had also been affected by chronic substance abuse and had Hep C as a result. So that's not good. He also had really awful teeth, and I guess they were, like, super, super, super decayed and really, really gross. But one of the big things...
His teeth were gross?
Yeah, like, rotted out. Like, he had, like, more than 10 teeth that were completely just, like, rotting, that were just still in his mouth. So I'm sure he had... that was one thing a lot of the victims said he had, like, rancid breath. Was one of the things that they've, remembered. Because his mouth smelled like, rotting bones. one of the things I didn't put in here, I can't believe I didn't put this in here, but it's like one of the biggest things that happened in the trial was when you are, okay, so when you're in court like that and he had one of his like fiancés there, he openly proclaimed that they were...
He had one of his fiancés?
Wait, nope, never mind. I'm getting it mixed up with somebody else.
Oh, okay.
Never mind. Cut that off. That's why it's not in here. It's because it's somebody else. I'm getting... See, this is what happens when you watch too many murder things and do too much research. If it's not in here, I need to not say it because I'm going to mix it up. But that is Richard Garbage Ramirez, you guys. He's such a piece of shit. He's such a piece of shit. I want to hear the things that you saw on the chart because...
I have some things to say.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Woo!
We're going now.
We're bowling.
We're bowling.
We're bowling now. We just started a new bowling league. And it's the Dark Alignment Bowling League.
Actually, if anyone wants to have a bowling league with us, that'd be so fun.
I'm
not
really
good.
bad.
No.
Okay.
My mom was in a bowling league though, and then she said that she was. I can't remember. I don't think she said she was that good. But it was fun.
Was it like when you were old enough to remember it?
No, I was not born.
Okay. I was gonna say, like, do you remember putting on the shirt and like going to bowling?
No, but I do know that she had like later. I think she kind of had like she liked it because of she was on the team in the past, so she did end up later getting her own like custom shoes and like ball and stuff. I think.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Why not?
It's just what you do when you're in a bowling league. Mm-hmm. Do we want to talk about...
Yep, so here's what's going on. Sorry, we got distracted with the bowling thing, but...
yeah.
Man, maybe I don't like the natural lighting. It's weird on my face. It's fine. So, we were recording this before. Let me hit record on my computer.
Oh.
We were recording this before, but it didn't do the audio part. Like the whole like podcast part.
The important part that you'll care about.
So I tried to save it and it didn't. That wasn't gonna happen. So now we're here just filming the second half of the podcast and the Patreon video again.
So those of you who are tuning in on YouTube, you can visually see like we are we are in different part of
it is 2 days later.
We are there's disconnects going on with that, but we're gonna try it again and get it
and another new backdrop. We're on a couch, we're lounging, we're cozy. We have different snacks. I have a drink because this has been a stressful week already. It's Tuesday. And we're just going to go ahead and get into this chart.
I have water in a goose cup, just in case anyone wants to know what
I love that cup. I was a big cup when I was a kid. This is some kind of rosé sangria thing that my grandma had in her fridge that she didn't drink because she started taking sleeping pills the last smart. Year of her life. And then she was talking to me and she was like, oh, I had a drink and blah blah blah, and I was like, wait, you can't be drinking if you're taking sleeping pills. And she was like because I assumed she's talking about the evening, like around the time you would take a sleeping pill. And then she said, oh, okay, well, if it's not safe, like I told her why she can't drink and do the sleeping pill. That's and then cute. She's like, oh, if I can't drink, and she's like, okay. And then later, like a month or two later, I see this bottle in her fridge, and I was like, oh, I didn't know you were, like, that looks good, and I just commented on it, and she was like, yeah, but I can't drink it because I've been taking those sleeping pills. And I was like, wait, like, you could drink it, like...
just not before bed.
During the day, or, like... not when you're taking the sleeping pill. And she's like, oh, I thought I couldn't have it at all. Oh, and I was like, no, that's not what I meant. But so it was a whole miscommunication. I guess she never drank any of it.
Wow.
And so I've been drinking it.
Hey,
it has a whole story behind it.
That's fantastic. Is it good?
Yeah, I mean, you can't try it, but
no. Can I smell it though?
Yeah. She is sober, for those who don't know.
I will be 9 years sober in July.
She's good sober. She's real sober.
I'm very long-term sobriety. I still do like to smell wine, though. Like, I really love wine.
This is not the only time she's asked to smell it.
Yeah, that's the only alcohol that I, like, still ever think about.
This is very sweet.
It
very,
smells
like,
great.
Candy.
Sangria. That's always a hot recommendation from Dark Alignment is sangria with like a splash of orange juice.
But do you like virgin drinks? I don't remember if we've talked about
that. They trigger me.
Okay, that totally makes
Well, you
sense.
know, I'm a hardcore water drinker, so like
water is good.
I'm always drinking water.
Hydrating. You're hydrating and I'm dehydrating.
Perfect. That's how we like to do it around here.
Perfect.
All right, let's chart this bitch.
So we have we're a few minutes in now. So Richard Ramirez, and I you know, it's a bummer because I feel like I really did a good job.
You really did. She fucking nailed it, you guys. Like, she was so on. You're always so on, but
we still have notes.
Yeah.
So Richie Boy's chart, Richie Ramirez's chart. He is a Pisces sun and a Pisces moon, and a Sagittarius rising. Didn't want to come out. He didn't want to say it. So his placements are really intense. He also has this huge stellium in Aquarius, which we talked about for a long time. But this time I think I'm going to switch it up, and we're going to talk about his moon first. His moon is conjunct Mercury and the South Node on his chart. And typically when this comes up in someone's chart, like, it can show... it's more likely that they had issues with the mother, that the mother may not have been around or helpful, especially maybe even just emotionally neglectful or absent in some way, or held them back emotionally. And with his Mercury here too, this also shows mentally. And so I think that's really interesting. And having this in Pisces also brings up some other ideas for me, but we were talking about how his mother, we don't know a whole lot about his mother.
Right. I kind of made some assumptions based on the father. So you have someone who was a Mexican nationalist, who was a police officer, who is going to be that very authoritarian personality type. So thinking of a spouse and like a Hispanic, very traditional type family dynamic, being first generation to America, like, that tells me that she was probably pretty subdued. She was probably pretty, possibly very timid, and probably kind of did what he said. At least with the
world around her too,
right?
And then in the relationship, when you put the whole family dynamic together, like,
there's 5 children.
It's more likely that the mother was passive personality,
and having that many children as well,
busy with the children,
exactly.
And we already know he would escape to the graveyard. And I feel like if mommy was really supportive and helpful, then maybe he wouldn't be escaping to sleep in the graveyard all night.
Right.
And so I think that there was definitely issues with the mothers. You could see issues with the father on the chart too. But having this placement, it almost seems like maybe he just assumed, he knew his father was the way he was, and maybe it was more upsetting that the mother didn't do more to help. And I hear the people say that a lot in these situations, because it's like, well, I know dad was bad, but mom didn't help me. Mom didn't whatever. So.
A lot of times you see it where, like, it'll be a well-meaning mother, or, it can go both directions. A well-meaning parent, I will say, is actually enabling the parent that's abusive and not intending to, or thinking, I've got to keep the family together, I've got to keep this dynamic together, I've got to keep the peace, I've got to make it smooth it over, I've got to minimize it. And, they're typically victims as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
When there's abuse going on, it's not usually just the children, it's not usually just one child, it's usually everybody. And then you have violence going on between siblings a lot as well. Like, it's kind of,
it's a whole
everybody's
system.
Everybody's violent in some of those situations, and sometimes it'll be the mother's the only one who isn't, and just trying to,
and as a mom, it over. Like, you don't want to. Anyway,
it's hard. It's a hard thing, but that is kind of my interpretation of this dynamic, especially with what you're like seeing on the chart and everything. It just feels like, that was probably very likely.
And it shows in his past he was really caught up in his own thoughts and his own emotions, and as he goes on with his life, he wants to be less and less caught up in that kind of emotional realm of his life. as is on the South Node, it's something that you want to integrate into your North Node, but as the way it is on his chart with this grand square situation, he's probably like more so just kind of disgusted by a lot of his feelings and emotions. Not disgusted by them, but disgusted at the feeling of having them. Does that make sense? Like, he doesn't want to have them. Yeah. And there's a lot going on there. And the only way he really processes it is through this Aquarius stellium, which we'll talk about because there's a sextile hitting that. Otherwise, it's a more conflict. Anyways. Again, with his childhood, though, the double Pisces in a graveyard, the double Pisces person sleeping in a graveyard, escaping to a graveyard, actually, because escapism is such a coping method for a Pisces energetic type of person, and for him to be in the graveyard, like,
that's his solace.
He was picking up on energy too, like of those
being
souls
a Pisces
being
sun
and
moon too. Like he was probably really.
You're ultra sensitive to these energies,
and he was young. You're
Neptune
more
is
susceptible
Scorpio.
when you're young.
Like he's, oh my gosh, and like you said, when you're young, like you pick up on more of these things. You're more open to these things.
Kids are the most susceptible,
and how vulnerable you are when you're going to sleep. And when you're escaping from your family, and like that just seems this would be really a bold statement to make, but I think that there's no I could really reasonably see some kind of like low-key possession or attachment of a negative spirit, like
just picking
him.
Up energies that are
not that he doesn't deserve what repercussions he's come to in his life based on what he did, and not to say that it's not his fault. I just think that like I wouldn't bet against some kind of like negative influence from something that he kind of picked up there.
He kind of talks about just his belief that everyone is evil and that the world is evil and that people are evil, and that he kind of is focused on that, and that might have been an energy that he picked up and carried with him. Because there was a lot going on at this time in his life, obviously, but I don't feel like it helps to be a susceptible energy in the first place, like being young, having all that Pisces energy. Like, I know that's an intense lifestyle. Just being a Pisces is a really intense lifestyle.
There was no boundaries in his childhood. It was boundaryless, and he was out with the spirits in the graveyard, and like he just, and
he was also kind of like, he was seeking comfort too and finding it there.
Yep.
So who knows?
And if you do believe in dark entities, a graveyard is like a really easy place for them to go and try to pick at people, because they know that people are going there with the intention of connecting with the other world.
That is very true.
It's kind of like when people get into Ouija boards, and it's like,
those scare me. I've never been I went to sleepover in the 3rd grade, and the mom busted out a fucking Ouija board, and I was like, where am I? This is crazy. I wanted to call my mom.
There's one in this house.
Ooh, okay.
But the planchette is broken, or the planchette is missing.
Please show it to me later on. I need to see it.
Okay.
Okay.
When my sister stayed in the house for a while during college, I moved it around a couple times to see if I could. It was some, but not far. Like, it's in this one storage closet, and like I would move it like to another part of the storage closet. Like if she even went in there.
That's really, really funny.
I wasn't too mean. I didn't like put it in the kitchen, or something.
See, I feel like that's a missed opportunity. I don't have siblings. I feel like I would have gone for it. Like,
but I wouldn't want her to do something that extreme to me. So I try not to do things to people that I wouldn't be okay with them doing to me.
This is a good mindset to have. I like it. Okay, that's smart.
Okay. All right. Anyways, not that she hasn't done things to me. Elizabeth.
Shout out Elizabeth.
Another thing with this strong Pisces energy he's got going on, you mentioned he had a little escapade with drug use.
Yeah, just a little. Just,
he had all these...
dropping some LSD at 13. It's slightly.
I mean, such a Pisces drug.
Yeah.
But really just like, addiction and drug use and like escapism through your addictions and things like that are really, really big with a lot of people with a lot of Pisces energy.
Strong
it
themes.
Comes through a lot with Pisces influence on a chart. So, if you know any addicts, check see what they have in Pisces.
Can confirm. We started this off by talking about me being 9 years sober. Pisces Sun, Pisces Mercury. Yay!
And what was your nickname for yourself again? No.
Blackout Brittney.
Blackout
Brittney. Oh, the former version.
I really just like that name.
Yeah, it's, and then Britney Spears released Blackout, the album, which I felt like was for me. So. Of course. This is a sign. It was, it was
If You Seek Amy was the one that came through for me.
But that's like
that made me a real hot topic in high school. So.
And the whole story behind that too, right?
Maybe. You can tell me. We'll talk about it later.
Oh, no, I can say it right now.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
If You Seek Amy, F-U-C-K.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
I didn't know if you, but that's what the song was.
I thought you meant like there's a whole story.
No, that's just, it was supposed to be that contract. I didn't know if you knew that being,
I did.
However old you were.
I did.
Younger,
I was in high school.
Okay.
I knew.
I don't know. I didn't know if you were like real good kid or
not. Not in high school. Not in high school. I was good at looking like one. But
I could see
I really wasn't necessarily. Anyway, but I'm sorry we're so distracted with this right now. We've just already done this once, and so it's like...
No, it's
great. Harder. So anyway, more with the Pisces energy. I also made a note that him not having a type of victim shows more of this lack of boundaries within himself, with all this Pisces energy, and he has all this Aquarius energy with this Aquarius stellium he has. He's got Chiron, Venus, Mars, Ceres, and Pholus in Aquarius. And this is a house that it's the opposite of the... Not opposite of the... he has an interception on his chart, so there are no house cusps in Aquarius, so this is also this Aquarius energy in his life is something he's kind of looking for. He's always kind of out to find more of this Aquarius energy, so it's a little bit emphasized in a way because of the lack of it, if that makes sense. Something you're searching, it becomes something you're searching for more in your life. That energy and Leo energy for him. But the Leo energy comes through more as a kink. He has he has Uranus in retrograde in Leo and his vertex there. And I see this, one way I see this really coming through, and the most interesting way that this comes through is through this voyeurism kink he has. And it's sextile his Lilith placement and his rising, and it just really just shows okay, this is how I want to, there's something there that's really intriguing, and unique and eccentric and sexual and powerful and empowering to him, and it's all to put on this show. It's very very kink,
very
coming
kink.
up on a chart. And he's in search of it. He wants to, he wants people to know what he did. He wants people to know, he kind of wants to put on this little show in a way, or
he certainly really went for it with the brutality every time, and he didn't just do little things. He didn't do things ever in the same way either. He was kind of always keeping everyone, he's full of surprises, full of surprises with what type of victim he was going for, full of surprises with what type of crime scene and what type of method, and his it was never
Uranus
the
is
same.
Surprises.
So he was all about just kind of, it feels like lots of shock value. I don't know.
Absolutely. Shock value. Uranus also rules Aquarius, which was where his stellium is. And that's something we talked about before last time, too, was the shock value of this Aquarius energy he has. He's always... Aquarius likes to drop a bomb and watch how people react, you know? So, especially if they can get a rise. They want to get a rise out of them. And we saw that a lot with his court case, which is, again, why I said that his... I can see why his midheaven is in Libra. There's no planets in this, so it's not a huge, I don't see it as a major thing, but he is most well known for because of the court case in some way, with how that court case went down. And there's trines from that midheaven over to the Aquarius stellium, which is, again, why I'm saying this. But, you know, for him to just be like, oh, well, like, no comment, and for him to make all these remarks and be drawing stuff on his hand, just trying to get a rise out of people.
Like the Satan stuff. It's just, it wasn't even like an expression of his beliefs. It was more of like, I'm trying to, like, scare you. I want you to be scared of me. I'm enjoying it. Like, that almost in itself feels like a kink, too. Like, he just, like, really had 100%. A lot of those sadist tendencies. Like, I like scaring you. I like you feeling afraid of me.
And sort of I really don't see on his chart, like, along with, like, the Satanist thing, satanic, like, religious thing. Like, I don't think that he was actually part of like a group, like the structure of that belief system. I think he just used it for his own advantage to like get a rise and shock and use it for shock value. I don't think that it maybe he could have had his own personal connection to that, you know, maybe to him he was doing something, but I don't think that he speaks for that group as a whole. I don't think that he even cares about that group as a whole.
He's so, like, individualistic in just every sense of it. He feels like very, very...
he's driven by individualism, which is, again, that Mars in Aquarius.
I forgot that's where his Mars was, but that makes complete sense because it is what motivates him. Is like
and his value system is there with Venus being in Aquarius, and Pholus is there, making it more exaggerated. Ceres is there, it makes him feel comforted. And his Chiron is there. It's like, oh, this is what, you know, it's just a lot. So this Aquarius energy is really strong for him, along obviously with the Pisces energy.
It's all like empty over here. It's this.
Yeah, he's got a very what do people call that? A chart where there's a quadrant that has a lot of things, and then another quadrant that has another things. Out of the 4 quadrants, 2 quadrants are full, and then there's kind of 2 like lackluster.
It's funny, I normally can't see your computer when we're recording. I'm actually really enjoying like seeing where everything actually is. I'm like,
true. Yeah.
It kind of is, it's different to see it for whatever reason.
I'm sure it is. We might have to stick with the couch system for a while. This is kind of cozy.
Yeah, it is. It really, I don't have my shoes on, and I usually always wear shoes.
You can see my feet, my ankles.
That's very sexy.
Also, I've been watching the H3 podcast a lot lately. If y'all want to rate me on WikiFeet.
Are you on there?
I'm probably not on there.
I feel like
but I just think it's so funny. I think it's so funny. Okay.
Rate me on there. That's my new hashtag.
Well, now
rate
it's on
WikiFeet.
Now it's on the camera, so y'all can go please give me 5 stars on WikiFeet. I want to get up there with the H3 podcast.
I don't know what this podcast is, but I really am intrigued.
I've been following all the David Dobrik stuff, and I like Trisha Paytas generally. So
okay, I'm gonna check this out. It's on my
Anyways, a lot of frenemies. Okay, back to we're more sidetracked than usual because we've done this once before. Okay,
well, it's okay. I was very tired, so I feel like we went really late, so. I feel like I'm different, and I can see things now. It's different. I feel like I'm a different level of...
We're different people today.
We're different people today than we were 2 days ago, always, so...
I have a full transformation every day as a Scorpio. I said earlier, I am Moldavite.
I can't even tell you how many people have said that I invented Moldavite to me. Really, it's a running joke. And
then every time I talk about, maybe I'll get some Moldavite, then everyone's like... You were already doing it. You're already doing Moldavite. And I was like, okay.
That's exactly it. Great. We created it.
I hope all of you are enjoying these side topics. Okay, so back to this. Okay, I said with Aquarius, he has Venus there, and that's, his value system is there. It's also his heart space, and that makes him a little more of like the way his... relationship, his values are more detached, and he's thinking more big picture, big scale. He really wants to approach life with the personal value system of Aquarius. Things should be a certain way. It's like idealistic. It's thinking of like society as a whole rather than like maybe you'll think of disadvantaged people, but it's not like it's more because of that the system is not working for them. Is kind of how you can want people to really find this type of healing for themselves, but with it being so idealistic, it's really easy for people with a lot of Aquarius energy to get like depressed and kind of have these existential crises because it's like it doesn't happen in the world, you know. You can get so upset by having these idealistic values never met and knowing that they likely will never ever be met in this world, and that in itself can kind of bring about the dark, because it's like it's kind of like, well, if things are never gonna get good, then I might as well keep them. They're gonna be bad anyway, so fuck it. You know?
They're like more affected, more sensitive to like big world issues, like with Aquarius. It's so interesting, and I see it in like a lot of the Aquarius people that I know that I like that have. I mean, I'm a Venus Aquarius, but I see it in like people that have more of like, I see a lot in Aquarius rising. So you're not the only one.
Chris Britton, do you have existential crises?
Tell us about it, please.
Him and I both have Aquarius rising and moons.
And Scorpio suns, because y'all are exact same big three.
This is the biggest event in my life.
That was
this year or whenever this happened. I've lost track of time completely. So also with his Mars here, it's also how he's driven. He's driven in this Aquarius way, which also just gave me some insight into an ex of mine with this Mars placement. It's like, well, if things are never going to work as I want them to, then why should I keep putting any effort in to make them that way? Because it's never going to necessarily happen.
Why try?
Why
leave the starting line if I'm not going to win the race?
So it's not the whole, it's not the entire overview of these placements on a chart, but I'm trying to bring light to this part of these placements because of the way, obviously, his life unfolded. There's, not to say if you have these placements you're doomed at all. I would hate for someone to have that be the takeaway of this, but
there's also like unevolved energy and more evolved energy. It's a spectrum for every sign, for every placement. Exactly. Some are more challenging, but doesn't mean you can't overcome.
Right, and it depends on the entire chart, of course, and you guys know that from listening to me. I don't take any one placement by itself. So with this all combined on the chart here, like he's really operating his life out of like, he feels like he's kind of living in this little dystopia. Like he can get also so wrapped up in the illusions and the delusions of his life with Neptune and Scorpio, and really trying to, he's really in tune with like all of the undercurrents of things going on, and the Pisces energy can be so emotional and can also be very triggered by all of this type of stuff. There's a lot of energy, like this reminds me of, like I said last time when we recorded this, was like a school shooter, because he's looking at like the whole school and being like, guys, this, like, you guys this is wrong. He has a whole problem with everything at the school, and then he's the outsider. The Aquarius energy often comes up as the outsider. I don't know if he necessarily feels that bad about being the outsider with his chart. I think he came to terms with being the outsider.
He's embraced it.
I think he has really truly embraced being an outsider. He embraced it that night at the
cemetery.
I think when he was younger, he was upset by it, but as he got older, he embraced it, and he really found his own. And that might be part of his Chiron journey, actually. So, and that's kind of, again, like a school shooter. It's like that's their character arc, is they found this. It's almost like they found their power. They got their power back by bringing the gun to school and doing that.
Right, and it's like the symbol of it. Like what what the act represents is like the hatred for the symbolic entity that isn't going right. Like, this is wrong, and I want to destroy it. I'm gonna do it by destroying the people that I've attached to it. So it's like, very symbolic.
Right. Exactly. And so that's a lot of what this is, but he's doing it on the, not just a school scale, he's doing it on like a
very grand,
a big scale of wherever he lives, everywhere he lives.
Garbage.
I know. It's almost like I saw, it reminded me of this quote that I saw, I can't remember where it was, but someone was talking about Mars and Aquarius, and it's almost like you're the conductor of an orchestra. Like, he's really good at, like, looking at everything in, like, a grander scale, like a balcony view, and being, like, almost like, there's another word, puppet master.
Yeah, that's what makes me think of immediately.
Except I don't know if he was really charming people to do things, even though he could. But he was more soft-spoken, which we'll talk about that in a minute. He knew what was going to happen and when things were going to happen, and he could feel into people's energies. Mm-hmm. He was probably very intuitive in a way. And he can look at things practically from a bigger scale. He has Neptune and Scorpio in the 11th house. He can really use this. I like however you worded this last time, where he can look into the undercurrents of a situation and use that to his advantage as well. Right. Especially in if he was going to be, he could use this in a deceptive way or manipulative way, especially with the way the squares are hitting. And there's a trine to his sun, so it's like it benefits him, but it's like a conflict with. Anyways,
he uses all his intuitive energy and his intuitive what could be a gift. Like, he uses it to feel out situations and seek out vulnerabilities, and that's what he's doing. It's like that's the energy he's going with. It's like, I'm just gonna. And
it is retrograde, so it shows that there are periods of time where he's doing good with it, and there's periods of time where he's doing bad with it. It shows that he had these breaks with his crime sprees, with his killing sprees, not crime sprees.
He was committing other crimes too,
he would come back more intense, Yeah. And you can also see that with some other placements on his chart, with that Uranus in retrograde, and so there's, and Pluto is over here. There's a lot going on. What was my point originally? What was I saying? Oh, because he can take a situation. And he has the situational awareness to manipulate it.
But not through charm. That's what's interesting is, like you said, he's not doing it
in a way.
Not like a Ted Bundy style.
No.
In a very...
No, not in a
I think when we think of charming, that is like a type of energy we think of.
There was one chart we did, and there was a Sag placement and a Gemini placement, and I was like, oh, he's just talking people into whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But this is more... With the Pisces energy, it's more soft, it's more kind of nurturing feeling, but then with the Sagittarius rising, there is a little charm there. There was something else that I wrote. A Sagittarius can also come off, they come off casual, nonchalant. Sagittarius rising kind of have these aloof eyes, they're here, but are they really? It's are you paying attention? And so he could probably come off he's not doing much of anything,
very unassuming.
And you would, unassuming is a really good word. If he was working in the elevator at the hotel.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And he guided you to your room, you might not think anything of it.
Yeah, you might not pick up on his...
But he knew that he could plan it out like that, That's kind of the picture I got, was him guiding someone up through the hotel to their room, so...
Ooh.
I know.
That's
the
vision.
So gross.
I can see it too. Ew. Ew.
I know it. And you think oh, this guy might be a little weird. It's kind of weird that I'm in the hotel in the elevator with him, but it's probably fine.
It's probably fine.
It's not.
I would be thinking the opposite. Anytime I'm in an elevator with anybody, I'm thinking, who's going to kill me in this elevator?
Now I definitely.
Which of you is the murderer?
Oh, God.
I'm really not that intense. I'm just...
Also, his Mercury was there, too. So, again, it's more of his speech coming up through that Pisces energy and how he, he thinks and how people are going to be, how he communicates. So, more with the hotel, though, that Lilith placement in the 6th house came up a couple different ways for me, listening earlier, or the other day.
Earlier. You have to say when earlier. It was still earlier.
I don't know. Okay. So, for career and success and, like, your, where you find your success in life, your achievements, your big goals that you hit in life, what you become known for, that's all your midheaven stuff. And, there is some of that where, he came off more soft-spoken. Like, that can also come up in that midheaven placement. Like, people knew him for, like, that. But, the 6th house is much more, like, day-to-day routines and tasks and things that you're doing. And that's where I really see this job for him, was the hotel job. We were literally doing these tasks and chores each day.
It's like a, daily grind stuff.
Yeah, daily grind stuff. It was the hotel, and it kept him in, like, he was literally, like, serving people in the hotels, and, making sure everything was right for the guests that are coming in, and helping them out. Virgo energy wants to, this is 6th house energy, Virgo energy wants to be of service in some way. And he has Lilith here right at the end of that house.
Ooh,
at
okay.
22 degrees, 11 seconds. 2211. And yeah, I also see it's in Gemini, so I can see the small groups of people coming up, and you're having these. That's probably where he had to do the most socializing, was at this type of job where he would actually be, like, chatting with the guests and chatting with things. Like, that's the most Gemini energy he really had.
There's nothing long term about it either. It's all, like, these short people coming for short stays, short conversations. Like, it's very
that and, like, prison conversations, day-to-day stuff in prison. But that's after the arc where it hits, anyways. And it's also his 7th house cusp is also in Gemini, so you can see there's some more chatting with partnerships and with legal issues and stuff too. But it's all related to his Lilith stuff going on. And also with Lilith, when you look at, like, the timeline of his life with his houses, it really makes sense to me how when he got to be 11, 12, 13 years old, that's when he started really acting on his compulsions, his visions that he had, his
well, and then there was so much influence going on at that time too, with, like, the cousin, and then watching somebody get shot in the face.
Right. Then all of a sudden Lilith energy kicked in at this age, and you can see that on the chart. That's where it kicked in. And the fact that it's in Gemini, and it tied to, there was, like, a little social element to this.
Right.
And so, like, with his cousin, he was able to talk with his cousin about it, and that's all of a sudden when he was going to start being manipulative, outright manipulative. He was going to start
the drugs started around that
being
time too.
more aggressive, more sexual. That's when all of that really hit.
Yeah, developmentally, that's the time that it would hit as well. So just to be exposed to everything he was exposed to at that vulnerable age, like, that kicked the wrong things into gear for him, for sure. Like,
and this grand square off of Lilith, it has his life path on it with the south node and the north node, Mercury, Moon, his rising, Jupiter, Vesta, and Juno up in Sagittarius. It's all on this big grand square, and that big square, like, squares off of the nodes kind of show these, like, these storylines, like a climax and then an ending, like if you were gonna write out a movie, like, or a script or something, you can say, like, okay, well, this is where we set up the story, and this is the climax of the story. It's like, oh my god, and then there's the
downfall event, and then, like, the resolution.
Exactly.
Or, I see what you're saying.
And so that's kind of what these are doing. And so you see that with his
his
rising sign, his karmic lesson in his life. It ties to it's directly from this past issue on his south node, and he uses these energies to get to his end point here with the Virgo north node, which we don't know as much about the end of his life, except that he was
terminally ill.
He was terminally ill, and he married in prison like 8 years before he died. And, you know, he was probably real sick for a while before he died. So I doubt they were long distance married, because, like, he's in prison.
Right. It's interesting, I guess, having that North Node Virgo placement, and it's like, you know, like about like health routine habits and his health fading and kind of deteriorating. That seems good. It's an ironic ending with Virgo there.
Yep. Exactly.
Thank you for the applause.
And it was 9th house, so it was like where he was going. It went so far.
The journey.
The journey of the sickness.
Journey of the sickness.
Really, I mean it's hard to phrase things in astrology sometimes, but like if you take it as it is, as an energy, it does like follow through. He didn't do what he needed to do, or that was his destiny.
That was his destination. That was his big journey. His long trip to sickness and death in prison.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it says.
How far was that prison from where he lived? I mean, that might have been a journey.
You know, I actually don't remember. You know what? Where was this prison? I actually don't remember.
California, I think.
Because he lived in California. Oh. So, yeah, Green Bay, California. I
had to enter it in. I have his death chart. We'll pull that up in a minute. I will make sure I have all my other stuff that I took note of.
I don't know I don't know distances from, like,
I don't know distances.
I don't know distances in California. It's a big state, so like you could be like, I went I moved from this area in California to this area, and that could be like, you know, like 8 hours away. Like it doesn't mean it's close by.
I think I hit pretty much all my notes. So we'll pull up his death chart.
Death chart.
I hope you guys can pull these charts up at home. These are really interesting to look at. I really am interested with Richard Ramirez's natal chart. There's a lot here. Let's see.
It's just wild to me that I have a lot of similar placements as him, and I'm like, oh, like, I don't like it.
I know, it's weird how many of these killers have had more similar placements to you.
Right. And well, because a lot of them are Pisces dominant energies, which is really wild. If you, like, let me think. So
Pisces and Virgo-y people and some Libra-y people. Those have been a lot of it.
Kind of shocking, really, because we've had, like, Eileen Warnos is a Pisces, or was.
We've had a lot of Aries energies, too.
Gacy is a Pisces. Richard Ramirez is a Pisces. Like, you just have, there's so many. And wasn't Casey Anthony a Pisces, but I tried to disown her? She was a Pisces barely. Yeah. I tried to say she wasn't. I was like, no, we really don't want her. Like, we'll take Richard Ramirez and we're going to reject her.
I can kind of see, that end of, and that was something when I researched before we started doing the podcast was, Pisces energies and Aries energies are really high on the
they really are
on the serial killer lists. And, I mean, not just
they're the
not just sun signs, because if you just Google it, you're only going to get sun signs. But like for them to have a lot of placements in these areas, especially like moon signs, they're so Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's so close to death in a way, and it's that transition from being in this life, and it's almost like they have one foot out the door with this energy. It's like, we're moving.
What's interesting? We don't have. I really can't think of a single Scorpio serial killer that we've had.
I don't think that we have talked about.
But like us specifically, like some that we've talked about a lot.
But everyone's like Scorpio, Cancer,
like Jodi Arias is a Cancer.
But Cancer, so maybe.
But like with Scorpio, I guess because it's like the house of death, you would kind of maybe put more in like the death card, and like it just has so much death symbology. Obviously Pisces does too, but it would be like, I don't know. It's interesting that it's not the same. It's more about transformative type death than like literal death. Like, and it
is also literal death, but a lot of people are just like, oh, Scorpio.
It's interesting. Now I want to look up all the Scorpio serial killers and like see who's in that group.
I think I might have posted some on the
I'm sure
Instagram.
you did. I'll just go back and look at our own page, Dark Alignment, at Dark Alignment. Go look at our Scorpio stuff, and you guys can tell us about it because you might be in a
If you guys have any Scorpio killer requests, let us know.
Or just general killer requests. We like these.
Yeah,
too.
I always like seeing comments and DMs for requests. Yeah. It makes it more fun.
We can do another poll soon. We've got our next few people researched and ready to go. But we still need more in the lineup for this season. So,
all right, this death chart.
Yes.
He died June 7th, 2013. We don't have an exact time, but the entire...
I do have... I thought about this over the last 2 days. This is really strange. I don't remember. I think I was like in the shower when I thought about this. It just came to me. So I was thinking most of the time when they... oh, wait, no, because he wasn't executed. Dang it, because he died.
I know.
Because when they're executed, they're executed close to midnight. I did put a lot of thought into this, and he wasn't even executed.
That's okay.
Man.
We have had a lot of executions.
But for future reference, if we have one that we don't have the death time, between midnight and 1 a.m. tends to be the most common hour because they want to take them out, like, and do all of that while other people are sleeping and there's not media, like, all up in the business. So.
Black box my entire body.
Yeah, do it.
All right.
Let's just... You're censoring my bodies. That's gross. We're not doing that. Okay. Anyway.
So, on the day of his death, the sun and moon were in the same sign again, which is interesting, and they were in the same sign as his Lilith, which is part of this big story arc of his. And Lilith was in the same sign as well, and Jupiter, making that a really expansive energy. Mars was there, trying his natal Mars, making note of that energy of the actions he took in his life, and the sexual actions he took, and the manipulative actions he took without Lilith placements as well. So all of this Gemini stuff is coming up completely, and it shows in the house where he, like I said, when he turned that age where he started killing, which is interesting to me. So it almost seems like a karmic event in my mind. But if you're looking at it just as is, over in his 8th house is... I wish I had a time, because I have to look at his 8th house.
I wish I had like a better estimation. Like, dang it, if he had been executed instead of dying natural,
only
I'm complaining.
So in his 8th house is natally his vertex, and when he where am I looking again? He has opposite this in his Uranus Juno, over in aspecting it along with the nodes aspecting. So there's a square, there's a confliction and death with his life path, with his, man, I gotta get my thoughts together before I say this out loud. Hold on.
Okay.
My mind's going faster than I can talk.
This chart looks a lot different than his natal chart. Like, this is a lot more spread out.
It's still kind of like a seesaw chart, but I think that might be the word I was trying to think of. But it's shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's double the placements because it's 2 charts overlaid.
Oh, so it's like a synastry chart.
Yeah.
I guess I've never actually looked at the death chart. Mm-hmm. I don't think... I can't ever see it.
I always overlay them. You can look at it individually,
cool.
But...
okay.
I like to look at them overlaid. All right,
that makes sense. Because I was like, there's so much happening.
So the commitment he showed with this energy... with Juno being an Aquarius over his Aquarius issue and aspecting his 8th house... with Uranus and his vertex and the I keep wanting to talk about the vertex of the time of death, but it's not the time of death, so I have to ignore that. It's coming up in relation to the lack of commitment he had to his Is that aspecting that? Okay, no, just the commitment to him with his issues. Okay, I'm just seeing all of this karmic stuff coming up. And then the life path being hitting his Neptune, and Saturn hitting Neptune over in Scorpio, being square to Uranus in the 8th house, showing how when the North Node and the South Node are transiting, it kind of shows like the direction of people at the time, and like society at the time and everything, all the energy kind of directing that way at the time. And so having it come conflicting his little issues, I think is really interesting. And it's in his 8th house, and it's like, all right, we're done with this. It's time to cut him out, is what it feels like, especially with this Plutonic Scorpio energy. And Neptune showing his delusions, like I said before.
It's like, it makes me wonder, like, okay, I have thoughts, since he did die of an illness, and I'm not sure how, I mean, this was 2013, so they are being humane as far as medical treatment at this stage. I'm assuming there was probably hospital stay, there was probably, like, when you say, like, delusions, I'm wondering if those were, like, drug-induced from, like, medications and things. I don't know.
Well, the delusions are from his natal chart, so that's just who he is. Okay. You know, just his normal ones.
I was wondering if there's added stuff with,
but they might have been
his death. Like,
they might have been more harsh because Saturn, like I said, Saturn was coming around. Yeah, it helps when you ask questions, so I can I can slow down my mind.
It was his mind slipping away from him at the time of, like, you know, like, because he was losing obviously his physical vitality. He lost his physical freedom being in prison, and then he's losing, like, agency over his physical self with, like, an illness and succumbing to that. And then, I don't know, I'm just trying to see if there's anything picking up on, like his... Aside from his Virgo stuff,
he lost all his power. He was disempowered. He has Lilith conjunct Lilith square his moon and Mercury. So emotionally and intellectually, and he was probably having difficulty speaking towards the end too, because there's a whole lot of disempowerment energy happening. Jupiter is also square this, so it's like, nope, we're gonna really make this difficult for you. Yeah, I think that he was having a rough time at the end. I don't know if it was really just it's obviously not as bad as what he did to other people.
Right. Of course not. Like, geez.
No. Yeah, and the delusions might have been more strong because he does have transit Neptune over his sun sign, and it's trine his natal Neptune, and they're both in retrograde phases of retrograde, so that could have been something else that made it more like, I need a word, like,
I don't know where you're going with it. I'm trying to pick up on the word.
I'm trying to think of Neptune words. Where it's kind of like you're seeing a lot of, like, veils between you and whatever you're actually looking at. It's like it's more ethereal. It's more illusionary. It's like he could have been having a hard time thinking straight. But also in the way that he knows he's going to die.
Yeah, but is it like an acceptance or welcoming kind of death? I'm curious, can you see anything like that? If he was, like, ready for it? It kind of sounds like he may have been, because he'd already been so disempowered, but
he has Chiron also coming through Pisces. So unless he... Oh, I remember saying this last time, too. Unless he hit some kind of, like, major inner healing... Like, unless he came to some personal growth and really healed, and I just don't think he did. I think that this was more of a traumatic experience. He had just undergone another Chiron return right before his death, which I'm wondering how that relates to the time of him getting sick. not getting sick altogether, obviously, but like maybe the last time he went into the hospital, like how, because he would have been having that Chiron return, backing it up.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening right now. This is insane.
I'm changing the dates of the transit chart.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see.
So his Chiron return was a year or two before. So I'm wondering how long he was.
That's what I was thinking too. Like how long from the time he was like diagnosed with this illness, with this type of cancer,
where it really started to interfere with his life,
right?
And then he ended up dying of it. I'm wondering how it relates, because Neptune and Chiron were over his Chiron in Aquarius a few years prior.
I feel like he definitely deserved to suffer for a long time with all the things he did. Like, it's not enough to just disempower this guy. Like, he was such a fucking monster. I feel like, yeah, this is
this is the other thing we talked about last time was his marriage that he had.
Oh, yeah.
So there was this whole marriage that he had in prison, and it was some lady that had written him like a whole bunch of letters.
Okay. Yeah, the thing with her, though, there was a bunch of women that wrote him letters. Like, he had lots of fans, and that's so strange to me, women who were, like, throwing themselves at him. And the particular woman he ended up marrying, I believe was, like, an attorney, and had a really high IQ. I want to say it was, like, 156, 152, 156. It was a really, really high IQ. Like, she was extremely intelligent. And it's just kind of one of those things that makes you go, like, what? I don't know, I don't get it. It blows my mind.
Well, on his chart it makes a lot of sense, because he has Venus in Aquarius. You're going to look for that intellectual, like, trait in another person. You could also, and he has Mars here and Ceres here. Like, if he may have been like sapiosexual, you know, like he may have been really wanting that type of intellectual component in a relationship. Also, this is a detached relationship. Like there's distance here because he's in prison and she's not. He didn't get like, you know, like a bunch of visits.
Yeah, death row inmates don't get conjugal visits either.
No,
even if you're married.
So he did not have any of that, and I think, you know, he may have been chill with it. I think he was maybe accepting of that. If he was going to have a relationship with his heart space and his all of these things being in Aquarius like this, and this being a house that has no house, or this being in a sign that has no house cusps, it really just makes a lot of sense to me that this was something he was kind of in search of, but maybe a little more like detached from, and he has a distance between him and this person. It's more of an intellectual thing. You're literally writing letters to each other all the time. It's all in communication. It's a lot of communication.
Letters, he loved to write letters. I have
maybe with your Venus in Aquarius, you start writing some letters to your partners. Maybe that'd be fun.
I should start writing letters. Oh, that's really funny.
And he's also known for this marriage with the trine over to his midheaven as well. Like I'm sure he gained a little notoriety when that happened, and it looked like there were a lot of articles about it when I looked it up.
Yeah, I can see him just being like, I don't know, like almost like, this is a nice thing that I've got. Like it doesn't like necessarily like mean that much to him, or like he doesn't really. I also feel like he is not capable of having a normal, like, whatever we deem normal. I don't like to use the word normal. But just, like, kind of what we consider, like, a typical romantic relationship. Because the things that, like...
It was unique. It was eccentric. It's an Aquarius.
And then different. The things sexually that turn him on or gratify him are violent. So when he doesn't have access to do that, I could see him losing total interest in that literal sexual side of himself and being stimulated, obviously.
This was a more practical type of relationship, and if they did have letters on sexual things, and they were only letters, it wasn't... Right.
He definitely was a letter writer.
With these values, and with all of this Aquarius stuff and the Pisces stuff, and he really... And Sagittarius also is kind of like a, you know, I don't care what you think energy, and that's more of him not being it's more of him not being too concerned with like what the rest of the world thinks. Like maybe it was wrong what he did, but he's just kind of like, well, I'm an outsider and I'm okay with it, and I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. Like
he's not remorseful.
No, I don't feel a lot of remorse. There I think his his perspective of the world is from too far of a distance. He's not looking at things up close and personal, like any kind of empathy he has, where, you know, Pisces energy can be extremely compassionate, I think was killed off by that south node being on his moon. And the rest of that Pisces energy was kind of just left to flounder in the rest of his placements, because, you know, all of this emotional trauma he had as a child, and however he decided to direct that energy under all these influences. Pisces is really susceptible to other influences in life. Like, I just don't think that like I said, I don't think that he was empathetic in that way.
Yeah.
Much more nonconformist. There was another phrase that I had that I really liked.
Oh, I hope you wrote it down.
Hopefully I did.
Scanning the notes.
Yeah, maybe I didn't. No, I don't think I did.
Well, dang it.
But I think that it might be all I have to say on his chart. I mean, there's obviously so much more you could always say on a chart, but I think this is good.
Yeah. I think that pretty much sums up this piece of shit. He sucks a lot, like most of the people we cover on this podcast, aside from, like, when we cover a victim. Like, you know, murderers usually suck. Murderers always suck. What am I saying? They always suck. Murder's not okay. We do not endorse murder on this podcast, even though we are true crime plus astrology. Oh, but, you know, if you like what you hear, if you want to support us, you can always follow us. We would love that. You can subscribe. You can hit the bell on YouTube. You can follow on Twitter. We are at Alignment Dark on Twitter. We are at Dark Alignment on Instagram. We also have Patreon.
There's a link tree with all these links below.
Yeah,
as well.
I've got the link tree on, like, my personal stuff. I think I'm at Britt_Oakley.
And I am at Eruca Rose.
So yeah, you can find us, interact with us. We try to do fun stuff on our Instagram stories. We do polls. And then for Patreon, we give extra bonus content. So even if we don't have, like, a regular episode out, we will have things. We
always have extra Patreon videos, and there's one thing that you got to tell them about, that our friend who has
so
this will be a Patreon thing.
Yeah, we're gonna go over it on Patreon. So really, really amazing friend of mine. She's so cool. She has lots of interesting murderabilia, like collectible things. And she has actual letter written by Richard Ramirez, handwritten, envelope and everything, written by Richard Ramirez. So when I was saying, yeah, he loves to write, he sure does. And I've got the, like, copy of the letter that we're gonna discuss on Patreon, and it's a handwritten poem that he wrote about.
So we'll be able to talk with her maybe.
And we really want to bring her on and talk about it. I do have the copy of the letter, so I'll talk a little bit about it, and I can read it, and we can kind of go over it, because it gives some great, like, crazy insight. But also just, like, holding the letter that he actually wrote, and he wrote it to he wrote it to an attorney. She also had, like John Wayne Gacy, a letter that he wrote, and his business card, and like all kinds of stuff that was just, like, fascinating pieces of, like, morbid history. Yeah, she's fucking awesome.
So stay around for that too. Get on Patreon. And all the money for that goes back towards our podcast right now to help us.
And we are working on, in the next couple of weeks, we will have a regular schedule set out. So we are working on that. Thank you guys so much for all your support, for sticking with us through all the changes, all the chaos, through COVID-19, all the fucked up shit going on in this crazy ass world. But continue to love yourselves. We love you guys. Make sure you chart all the bitches in your life. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.